Hello everybody, welcome to my painting channel. I'm Pete Bain and I wanted to start today by thanking all of you for tuning in. I'm so appreciative of all of the response that I've received for these videos, the likes, the comments, the subscriptions. They've all been really great. Okay, so with that out of the way, today's video is about doing a small landscape painting, and this is an 8x8 that I did recently. It's got a really dramatic sky with a low horizon, a line of clouds marching across it, a beach with rocks, and even some figures here. It's really, this is a magical spot in Maine. In fact, this particular painting is of the same area, and I'm excited to share with you the process by which I made this piece. So let's get started. Let's make a quick review of my palette to begin. I use liquid to make the paint more fluid and to speed its drying. Permeable white, which is a nice opaque white that spreads very nicely. And I use a split primary palette for the colors, warm and cool of each color. So here we've got cad red and alizarin crimson, cadmium yellow, and also cad lemon, and Windsor blue, and ultramarine blue, and then I have two earth tones, the yellow ochre pale and transparent red oxide. I have a cup of thinner, which is Gamsol from the company Gamblin, and I use filbert brushes. These are three that I'll be using today, at number 8 to 6, I think, and a number 2. Roll of paper towels, and I'm using a hard panel with a piece of canvas fixed to it, and I think the size is 8 by 8 inches. And that covers all of our materials. This is the image I'm working from. I took this photo on our family vacation in southern Maine last month. It's a shot of a small beach in Ogunquit. It's a pretty special spot in that it's hemmed in by rocks on either side, and it disappears completely at high tide. The sand has a really gradual slope, so at low tide the little beach expands tremendously in size, and you can explore the rocks, watch the boogie boarders, or even enjoy the chilly water. Alright, as usual, I'm toning my canvas before I begin because it helps me make better value decisions when I begin the block in. It's also a nice, easy way to start with no pressure. Simply color in your canvas with a nice warm color using a paper towel. I like to use a warm color for my undertone paintings here, and I've thinned it with Gamsol so that it's not very thick. It's going to dry real quick, and I can get started on it right away. Now on to the drawing. With the drawing, we're trying to define 3, 4, or 5 big shapes very accurately. That's the most important thing here. I always start with the horizon on a landscape if it's visible, and a small change I made to this particular image was to break the horizon line with the peak of that line of rocks. I didn't want the top of the rock just to kiss the horizon. That would be an awkward little point. What inspired me about this photo and the way I cropped it was to accentuate the drama of that stunning summer sky with that incredible blue, and how the blue changes color, really dark and deep at the top and much lighter at the horizon line. And then I love the way those puffy clouds marched across the sky, and the line of rocks sort of mimicked the clouds in a way, and then there's some figures in the water to give this image some life and some vitality. So I was excited when I sat there on my little beach chair, took the photo, and I knew I would enjoy painting it. With this painting, I decided to do a monochromatic block in. It is an extra step before applying color, but I wanted to highlight how important the values are to a successful painting, especially this one with such a dramatic value change running vertically through the sky. I love monochromatic block ends because you can work out the entire painting without any risk before any heavy paint is applied. I used a single color, ultramarine blue, thinned with Gamsol, and I added a little bit of white for the highlights and darkened it using transparent red oxide for the accents. It's an extra step to do the monochromatic underpainting, but I'm always happy when I've taken the time to do it. It serves as a roadmap for the rest of the painting, which then goes so smoothly, so quickly. This is the opportunity to make changes to your composition, your drawing, to plan your values out. I have just a single layer of paint thinned with Gamsol, so all these alterations are very easy to make at this point. You'll notice that I've just dropped the horizon and I'm lowering some of the clouds as well. I'm doing this because I think my drawing was a little bit off. I had cropped this image to really accentuate the drama of that big summer sky, and I think a lower horizon really supports that drama and the lower clouds as well. So that's what I was able to do just in a few moments there. One of the techniques that I wanted to highlight with this video is how to paint a gradated sky. With so much of the sky showing, there's going to be a noticeable change in the value from the top to the bottom, which shows atmospheric perspective. The closer sky above our heads is a deep, dark blue, and the distant sky is a lighter, cooler shade of blue. So I use bands of color to achieve this effect. So I used 4 bands here and a line of violet at the horizon to indicate the distant clouds. You could use 3. It doesn't really matter too much, but once they're laid down on the canvas, you want to use a clean brush and knit the edges of these bands together so that it appears to be a seamless gradation of color, dark from the top and light to the horizon line. It's so easy to make clouds look unnatural and awkward and weird. So I guess the advice I can give for painting clouds is to make them seem real and to fit into your composition and seem natural is to really focus on keeping the edges soft and don't overdo the shadows too heavily. And also the shadow color, speaking of shadows, shouldn't be black. Don't use ivory black for your shadows. Mix up a soft violet, which can be a very nice color, and then gray it down just a little bit with a drop of yellow ochre. Okay, and also when you're doing your clouds and the drawing of the clouds, keep in mind that the clouds should have variability of size and spacing. They shouldn't look like floating potatoes in the sky. You know, follow the rules of perspective. Larger clouds are closer to the viewer, higher up in the painting, and as they get closer to the horizon, they're going to be smaller. I've been asked where the darkest part of the ocean is. Is it closest to the viewer or is it on the horizon? And the answer is that it really depends on the atmosphere, the weather, the time of the day, the direction that you're looking. You need to evaluate your specific scene to answer the question. In this particular image, the ocean was darkest right on the horizon line. And to get that blue, I mixed phthalo blue with some yellow ochre pale and a tiny drop of cadmium red. If you look at a lot of ocean scenes, you'll notice just how much red there is in the beautiful blue color of the water. I mentioned that I made one compositional change, and that was to break the horizon line with the peak of one of the rocks. Um, and once I had done that, I began to lay in the darks, and I did this pretty liberally on those rocks, with the knowledge that most of them will get covered with the midtones. If you remember, we always paint dark to light with oil paints. And for those midtones, I mixed up a warm gray. I think it was yellow ochre pale with a little bit of cad red, perhaps a drop of ultramarine as well. But it was a warm gray, and and then also don't forget the shadows. These rocks are casting small shadows, and that helps ground them into the earth, into that sandy bottom. If those shadows aren't there, they can appear just pasted onto the canvas. The sand was fairly straightforward. It was just a form of orange to paint into this block. And I think I took a lot of white, added some yellow ochre pale. I warmed it up a bit with cad red. If you want to gray it down, you could add a little bit of ultramarine blue to that mixture. And there can be changes in tone on sand. It can be dark right at the water line where the waves are washing in. It can be darker. Next to rocks where there perhaps more moisture is being held, or it can be warmer closer to you in the foreground as well. But this is a pretty small painting, and I just painted it fairly straightforward with the same value across the entire shape of the sand. These figures were surprisingly easy. I hope you're not intimidated or overthink them. They're just so small and distant that we can pop them in with just two easy little brush strokes. The first one was a line or a little rectangle, flesh color, and then I'll go back into those figures with a second brush stroke and indicate t-shirts and bathing suits with some bright colors. So it's that simple. Now it's time to go back and do some highlights and details. I first went into the clouds, adding white highlights, which is actually white with a tiny pinch of cad lemon. Nothing is pure white. Never use white straight out of the tube on your painting. Always ensure you tint it in some way. And for the clouds, I wanted to to ensure that my edges were soft. I wanted to confirm that the shapes have good variety and spacing, and also that the shadows within the clouds were not too intense. I use the opportunity now now that the paint has set up a little bit, the sky color has dried. I use this opportunity to pop in the suggestion of distant clouds going back into towards the horizon. And I also added a patriotic color scheme to our swimmers there. A little red, white, and blue bathing suit schematic. So that was fun. And finally, I addressed a mushy and somewhat ambiguous edge on the lower part of the rocks that was bothering me. I wanted to distinguish the rock edge versus the cast shadow on the sand. And once I had made those little adjustments, I felt I was pretty satisfied with this as a very good rendering of the scene, where I had captured the drama of that summer sky, the immensity of the ocean, and we had even managed to pop in some figures to give the scene some humanity and life. So it serves as a nice little sketch, and it can be a lovely little painting on its own, or it could inform a larger piece. So we'll see what happens there. But this was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well, and you take something away from it, or at least it inspires you to do more of your own work. And so thank you very much for joining me. It was a pleasure. Take care, and we will see each other next time.